we'll go ahead with our class on the molecular relationship. I think this is what, class 5, if I remember right. And for those of you who missed it or are new to the group, I've got this linked up online so you can go through the classes from the beginning if you have time to do that. I'll start out by talking about relationship a little bit, because the title of what we're about is the molecular relationship, and relationship has created everything in the entire universe when you think about it. The atoms are created with a relationship of protons to electrons. They balance each other off, and then neutrons come in and they form a relationship that adds greater balance to the heavier atoms, and so on. And everything is about relationship. And so the same thing with us as humans. Us as humans, everything, relationship is really what gives us purpose, what motivates us to move ahead, what gives us enjoyment in life. Even opposing relationships are kind of interesting. Like we were talking about games last week. In a game, you have two opponents against each other. If you have a good opponent, you'll actually respect that good opponent. And you may even like the opponent. But then when you're in the game with him, then you struggle against him. And so it's all about relationship. Even when you have an opponent, if you're abiding by fair rules, you can get an enjoyment from the relationship with an opponent, with a friend, with somebody that's cooperative, with a business associate, or whatever. But everything is governed by relationship. Relationship is perhaps the most important principle in the universe as far as living entities, living conscious entities are concerned. And one of the most important relationships is what we call marriage. But there's many type of marriage relationships. I talk about in my book that molecules are created by a marriage relationship between atoms. Atoms join together and they marry. The reason I call it marriage is that marriage is a relationship that's set with an eye on an extended period of time or even being permanent, okay? So when the two atoms of hydrogen join with an atom of oxygen and they create a water molecule, they sometimes stay together for millions, even billions of years. They have a marriage relationship where they stay together for a very long period of time. And so this marriage relationship extends from subatomic particles to atoms joining together to create molecules, and molecules joining together to create living cells joining together to create organs and bodies. And so we are following in their footsteps. And the first step of this is close relationships. We have numerous close relationships. The closest is the marriage relationship where two people make a powerful commitment to each other. Now, you also have other relationships which are similar to marriage. You have businesses, people have business partnerships that may even last a lifetime. And some business partnerships are closer than their marriages. You have people that are good friends, like we have Joshua and Nick, are a couple good friends that we always see together here. And a good friendship will oftentimes outlast a marriage. And many people go through a number of marriages, yet their good friends have stayed with them throughout their entire life. So the friendship relationship is extremely important. And that's one of the things that will make a marriage work, is if the couple are not only romantically in love, but they turn out to be good friends. I look at some of these people that are married, so one of them's real liberal and one of them's real conservative, and I wonder how they can really be very happy together, or what they talk about at the dinner table. One of them hates Trump and one of them loves Trump, and so that would make for some interesting conversation. I'm really thankful that my wife and I think a lot alike politically, so we don't argue about that type of thing. So that really helps the relationship to have things in common. Now, one of the things that's kind of strange about the marriage relationship is, we talked last week, we're kind of falling behind the atoms, and the fact that the atoms, they get together, and if they have a stable molecule, they stay together for an indefinite period of time. Whereas in our marriage relationships, we have about half of them that wind up getting divorced, and then about half of the ones that stay married aren't very happy. A lot of them wish they were divorced, but just can't figure out a graceful way to get out of the relationship. So about 25% of the married couples are pretty happy together. Now, friendships are a little bit like marriages in the fact that some friendships wind up ending also, or some. Maybe you thought, look back to your best friends when you were back in high school. Are you still best friends with them? How about you, Curtis? Your best friends when you were young, are any of them still hanging around? Or is Curtis still here?
Curtis went back to high school to see if he could find some friends. I'm not here right.
Okay. How about you, Stacy? You're since I got you there. Think back to when you were a teenager and had a best friend or two. Are they still around? Or are you still best friends with them?
Yes, I am, as a matter of fact. I'm friends with just about everybody I was friends with back that's still alive that when I was in high school and grade school.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, I think back, I'm still friends with a lot of my high school associates, but we just don't hang out anymore. You know, a lot of them really aren't interested in metaphysics and stuff that I am now, but you meet them somewhere and or a reunion, and it's just like good old times. But you develop interests that are different as time goes on. So friends are a little bit different in marriage. A lot of divorced people just hate each other afterwards. But if you're friends with somebody when you're young, and even though your interests have changed, you generally still friends with them if you happen to stumble across them again.
I have a Facebook friend that we've been friends since before school, even before first grade. We used to play together.
Yeah. But so one of the things I want to talk about right now is, what are the principles that creates a good, solid relationship? Let's first of all talk about marriage a little bit. We only have a handful of people that are married in our group. Let's see. Well, Adam and Marnie, they have a good, happy relationship. What's your what word am I looking for? What's your solution for a happy marriage, Adam and Marnie?
Yeah.
What's your advice to everybody else?
What's your secret?
Yeah, your secret.
Lots of sex.
Okay, that's one thing that helps satisfy each other's needs, I guess you could say, huh?
I was going to say communication.
Yeah.
Lots of talking, listening.
Oh, I don't see Marnie there today, so we can't get her opinion, huh? Is she there?
Marn, what's the secret to a happy relationship? Forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you do need a little forgiveness once in a while, Adam, knowing you.
Around the clock.
Yeah. Okay. Another happy couple here is uh, who else is here with us?
I think good communication is probably a key in a long, good relationship.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Jen and Eve is with us. How about you two? You two are always look real happy together. What's your secret?
Yeah, basic communication. That's the most important thing. You cannot really forget things and wait till the time gonna dissolve. You just you have to be a kind of like right on the money, right on time. Just whatever you feel, just say it, and don't wait till tomorrow or next day.
Yeah. Don't let the grievance build up.
Yeah.
Do you ever have a problem with a grievance and then you just got to let it out somehow?
I mean, agreements. We don't really let to kind of
Never gets that far, huh?
exactly. It's just it's gotta be right on time, and whatever it's there, just fill it out if you don't like anything or you don't feel like this is the appropriate way to approach. Well, it's just kind of like talking is this. That's the key, basically.
Okay. Now he's another happily married guy. Seemed like everybody's without their wives here today for some reason. Okay, what's your secret, Solomon?
I think it's understanding.
Yeah,
People-
understanding each other. Yeah, I think as Leonardo da Vinci said, before something can be loved, it must first be understood. And if you feel, that's one thing that makes you fall in love is if you feel that other person understands you, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you think your wife understands you then? You're really
Yes.
lucky if you do, because that's a big complaint about guys. My wife doesn't understand me. She doesn't understand why I want to go bowling instead of going out with her. But you feel your wife understands you pretty good. So you're a lucky man then, Solomon.
Exactly.
So do you try to show her understanding too then?
Exactly. And I think that understanding gives birth to goodwill. You want her to grow, you want her to progress, you want to support her, and she also wants to support you.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things we do in our relationship is we both have our avenues of where we have our priorities. Like any decision concerning the house or what we do around the house, it's pretty much up to her. I just let her have her way. Anything we want to do there, pretty much, unless it's just totally outrageous. Then she is very supportive with me in the work I'm doing and doesn't complain about being ignored or anything. And so, like a lot of people would. And so you both need to have your areas where you have control of your life and support each other in it. And I think that helps a lot. Now, also, one of the secrets that we have that we have to use not nearly as much in our later relationship as we did in the beginning. Matter of fact, we haven't done it for a while. But where you have negativity rise in your relationship, and where you're at that point to where you feel like telling the other person off or feeling negative toward them. What we do when that happens is one of us will approach the other and we'll get the other one to look us in the eye and say, I love you 3 times. And not the words I love you 3 times, but I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay. And it's kind of funny to do that when it happens, because if you're in a really bad mood, the first I love you will maybe go like this, I love you, you know. Okay. So if I tell her to say I love you 3 times, it's your turn to say I love you 3 times. And if she says it where it doesn't sound convincing, I say you have to sound convincing. Okay. And so we say, I love you. I love you. And then the third time, it has to sound convincing. I love you. Okay. And by the time we say it to each other, I say it 3 times and she says it 3 times. And sometimes she'll make me say it. Other times I'll make her say it. And after we say, I love you 3 times, looking each other in the eye, something magical happens is we can't even remember what the problem was. And often if we have an argument, we can't remember what the argument was. It's like it dissipates the negativity. So that's a really good exercise. And sometimes at our gathering, we have an exercise that the group really likes. I get a really positive comment on it. We go around and have everybody look in each other's eyes and tell them that they love them with the pure love of Christ. And they look at each other and try to exchange and visualize what that pure love of Christ is. And by the time you've done it to everybody in the group, you really feel light and full of goodwill. And so anyway, that's an exercise we've done at the gatherings that I've got some really good comment on.
Going around and forgiving people is very powerful too.
Yeah. But probably one of the main ingredients is to always try to give a little bit more than you get. When there's a duality, there's always a little bit more on one side of the duality than the other. So each of us should try to give a little more than we receive. And this creates a nice little, if we're a little out of balance, we would be out of balance in the right way. And what's interesting is about why this is important is because it seems like in a relationship that everybody thinks they're the one given 90% of the giving and the contribution to the relationship. And so as it turns out, that's exaggerated in a lot of people's minds. So if 2 people are together and both of them feel they're giving 90% and the other guy's only giving 10%, then they're really not perceiving accurately. And because we do not perceive accurately, it's important that we give more than we think the 50% level is. Because if you're just giving 50%, the other person likely will feel you're only giving maybe 10%. But if you give 90%, then the other person will feel like, yeah, he's given pretty much his share. Okay, so you have to give just about everything you can in a relationship to make it work. And if you do that, it will help it go along smoothly. Any of the good comments about making relationships work?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me, JJ? Yes. Well, I don't believe I heard anyone use the word trust yet. So I think it's very important, no matter what the relationship is, if it's a friendship, a marriage, a business associate, anyone, you should, I'm using should, but it would be it would be nice if you can really count on them and trust that they will be working in the interest of the relationship to keep it working, to keep it flowing in a positive way. And you can trust them to be where they're going to be when they're going to be there, and likewise for you to them. A commitment, in other words.
Right, and that's a good point, and that's an important thing to work on. Not so much you trusting the other person, but you doing your part to show that you are a trustworthy person. For instance, one of my personal codes in life is to always tell the truth. So my wife, when I first married her, her past husbands weren't always that truthful, and so it took a little while for her to trust that I was always telling the truth. And now, over a period of time, she knows that if I say that I'm telling you the truth on this matter, she believes me, because I have she has never caught me in a lie. Okay, sometimes I make a mistake and things like that, but I don't tell her any conscious lie. And if you can believe that your friend or spouse or person in a relationship is telling you the truth, that is a great starting point to keep the relationship alive and vibrant and together. So that's a good point. The trust works two ways, but it's important to give the person the benefit of the doubt too. If it can destroy a relationship if you have a jaundiced attitude toward everything that's going on. If there's a 50-50 chance they did something wrong and you just assume they screwed up, you don't want to have that attitude either, but always give the person the benefit of the doubt in the relationship. And then for your part, don't give the person any reason to doubt, but give them a reason to not doubt you, to trust in you. And so, yeah, that can work good. And as we're working together to form a molecular relationship with a group, this type of trust and the principles of the marriage relationship applies to us also in group activity. And we like Jan says, understanding each other is very, very important, or somebody said that. And to trust each other, to be able to share with each other, to be able to communicate with each other, all the principles that make a marriage relationship successful applies to all types of relationships. And as we look to build the molecular relationship, we need to apply these very same principles. Okay, any other comments on marriage?
Well, I had an opportunity to take a couple of courses with a group back in '85 and '86. And one of the tenets they said is that there's no such thing as a relationship. It has to be a joint participation in the good of God.
Yeah.
They said it's difficult to really relate to somebody unless you have some joint participation, something that you can do together that is for the good of life.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, speaking of doing things together, that's one of the important things of these weekly meetings that gives us an opportunity to all get together and rub shoulders, share ideas. And that's important for our relationship as a group. Okay, any more comments on that subject?
Yeah, I think you also have to have a proper relationship with different parts of yourself, your own consciousness. Like you can think you're acting appropriately to people or being honest, but if you're sort of being dishonest with yourself, or the relationship between different parts of you is unharmonious, that's going to be reflected in your relationship out there with others.
Right. If we have to be honest with ourselves, and within each one of us is male and female energies, and we have to learn to balance them up. And balance was another key word that we were talking about last week. Relationship is a balance between energies, a balance between trust, reliability, communication, to balance all these things off. But it's also a balance of male and female energy. Male is ascending energy, female is a receiving. And doesn't matter if you're in a male or female body, you still use both of those energies to a degree. Just if you're in a male body, you tend to gravitate more towards sending. If you're in a female body, you gravitate more towards receiving. But both of them are important. And so within you, within your very being, you have male and female energies. The female energies are mostly centered around the heart area, is where they're most intense, and also the solar plexus. The male energies are more in the head and the throat. And so you have the balance between these energies, and sometimes within you, just like in with male and female, sometimes they'll be conflicted. Sometimes the mind wants to do something and the emotional part of yourself doesn't want to do it. Okay. Other times the emotional part of yourself really wants to do something and your mind says, no, that's crazy, we're not going to do that. So you have these conflicts, and as the person evolves, the conflicts become less and less, and the balance becomes greater. So the male and female energies within the person's own being begins to balance off. And as they balance off and you find somebody else where they're in pretty good balance, then that makes for a more balanced relationship. If you're out of balance yourself, then even if you find somebody who is fairly balanced, they're going to have a hard time with you. So it's important. Joshua brings up a good point here. It's important to have this balance occur within ourselves. So we have all kinds of little relationships going on in from ourselves to our organs, our centers, and our bodies, and then eventually bringing us up to a point where we can achieve balance. And then we seek relationships with others, and then groups seek relationship with groups, nations with nations, and so on up the line. And everything is balance, relationships, sharing, giving, receiving, and it's the way of the universe and way of creation. Okay, any more comment on that subject before we move on?
Well, there is a course that a lady I know in California teaches called Group Dynamics. And it's I took this course in California it lasted a couple of years, but she's starting it again. Georgia Lambert, I think Janine knows Georgia Lambert. But she teaches this course called Group Dynamics. It's based on all of the esoteric teachings. I have the book here that she prepared.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's some, whoop, you disappeared there, Ed. You got a strange program there. Okay. Okay, one of the things that's important to understand as we learn about relationships and making everything work is what we call the Law of Correspondences. Who wants to explain the Law of Correspondences to us? Somebody besides Ed. Who's going to tell us what the Law of Correspondences is?
I'll take a shot at it if nobody else wants to.
Okay.
Well, it's basically summed up by the phrase "as above, so also below." And I remember reading not too long ago a DK quote where he says that there's a difference between analogy and correspondence. Analogy is where there's a similarity, but it's not truly an exact reflection, but correspondence is where the reflection is precise, something to that effect. So it's basically on one one level of one level of reality, the same thing is reflected as on another level of reality.
Yeah, that's an interesting difference. However, he does point out that even in the law of correspondences, as below, so above, that it's not always exact. Like we have a correspondence of an atom to a human atom, and interestingly enough, the first man was supposed to have been named Adam, which sounds a lot like ATOM, sounds a lot like ADAM when you just say it, which is an interesting thing. And the atom is also corresponds to a solar system where you have a central sun with the planets circulating around it. But on the other hand, a lot of people don't see the correspondence between a human and an atom. Okay, the nucleus of the human atom is what?
The monad.
No, that's not quite it. The monad doesn't even have any
the heart
mass.
center.
The monad is the originating point. Okay, but the nucleus. Okay, let's look at an atom. An atom has about all of its mass is in the center, except of the tiny little bit of mass composed of the electrons. An electron is only about 2/2000ths of the mass of a proton. So mass is the negative energy of the electron is really ephemeral compared to the center of it. So what's the center of the human atom?
Base chakra.
No? It's a
The
human,
heart center.
it's the body. Okay, what we're seeing there when we're looking at Solomon, we're looking at his nucleus. Okay. Where's the electrons at? Remember, what part of the human part of ourselves is so light that we can't even hardly see it, unless we really have to look.
The etheric body.
Right, the etheric body, and what extends beyond the etheric body? What, the etheric body? Yeah, all that's non-physical, the etheric and the aura. Okay, the aura is so fine that they can't even hardly weigh it. You know, it doesn't have any mass that we even know about. Okay, and that's similar to the atom. The nucleus of the atom, almost all the weight is in the center part of the atom. And then those electrons circling around the atom have hardly any weight at all. Okay, but they have a powerful effect. It balances off. So we have the non-physical part of ourselves and circulation around us. Now, if you look at your aura, you will actually see the outer part of your aura in circulation. It circles around you. And just like the electrons circle around an atom, you have energy in circulation right around your physical body. So and it's also shaped, you're somewhat egg-shaped. So the outer film of your aura is, if you extend your arm straight out, and your fingertips will come close to touching the outer film of your aura. So just about as far as you can stretch your hand. And that outer film is projected all kinds of geometrical forms which symbolize anything that you might be thinking, which is interesting. And so if you could actually see the outer film of an aura of somebody you're associated with, you could read their minds if you could interpret the symbols that's projected on the outer film of the aura. So it's interesting how the human being is a lot like an atom. We're actually circular like an atom, except it's not exactly circular, it's somewhat egg-shaped. Now, psychics who've actually gone and seen the atom have said it's not exactly circular either. It's somewhat heart-shaped. So Annie Besant and Ledbetter did a bunch of work together where they went and visited the atoms. Okay, so they are. We are very much correspond to an atom, but we are not exact. There's correspondences with a twist. And then as we get higher, like I say, we have the sun with the planets circulating around it. Same principle, where they're all in relationship and they all create balance. And then we go higher, we have 7 solar systems together linked to create one great life. And that great life has a very interesting name named by the Tibetan. Does anyone remember what that great life that embodies 7 solar systems is called?
The one about whom naught can be said.
That's right, the one about whom naught may be said. And the reason he's called that is because his consciousness is so high, even the masters can't understand him. But they just know his intelligence is extremely high, and the masters and the higher lives pick up impressions from this higher life. And then, of course, there would be higher lives beyond that, but it would be beyond our imagination to comprehend. So we have all kinds of correspondences, and of course we have the entire galaxies. And the galaxies, again, if you've seen pictures of galaxies, you have most of the mass right in the center of the galaxy, and then the outer part of the galaxy, it's a lot lighter. Imagine what it would be like if you lived on a planet in the center of the galaxy. There would be so many stars in the sky that there would never be dark. You'd look up in the sky and there'd be a bunch of bright stars up there, and some of them as bright as our moon looks at night, and it would never be dark. So that would be weird. Because we're on the outer part of the galaxy, we look up in the night sky and it's dark, just far away twinkling stars up there. But if we were in the center of the galaxy and lived on one of the planets there, and you look there, they would never see night. I'm kind of glad we live in this part of the galaxy, because it would be kind of boring to have it be daytime all the time. And so that we live in a really good spot of the galaxy. Plus, if we lived in the center of the galaxy, there'd probably be a lot more chance of getting hit by some asteroid or something, since it's a lot more condensed there. So we live in a really good location. Okay, the foundation then of all molecular relationships is the joining of male and female energies. And male and female energies goes beyond the physical body. All of us are in a physical male body or a physical female body, but say 2 men form a relationship, just a friendship, one of them will be more sending than receiving. And then sometimes they'll switch around. Say you have 2 friends together. One friend is an expert on, say, finance, another person is an expert on science. So when they talk about science, the guy that's experts on science will be the sending person. So he then assumes the male role of the sender. Okay. So then they switch over to finance. The other guy is an expert on finance, so he assumes the male role of sending. So in a relationship, in any relationship, you have both the energies at play. And there will always be one that will dominate more on one of the energies than the other. And so the purpose of the molecular relationship is to balance these energies off, not to do away with the energies. And this is one of the problems of humanity today, that we talk about the war between men and women, male and female, and it's like one side often feels the solution is to pretty much eliminate the other side. But that's not the solution at all. The solution is to bring balance. Let the energies be put to use, but in a way that will balance each other off. You can have very powerful sending energies and very powerful receiving energies that work together and create balance. And balance is the key. And balance will be the key when we form a molecule. And that's why in the molecule we have the molecule of 12 units will have 12 males and 12 females. The first balance that has to be achieved to create a molecule will be the individuals in the molecule balancing themselves off between them and the soul. We are each of us females to our souls. Our soul forms the masculine sending energy. So the soul sends to us and we receive, okay? If we decide that we are smarter than our soul, than our higher self, and we refuse to receive, that we're going to go out there and we're going to tell off our higher self or tell off God that everything is wrong, and we refuse to receive, then that puts us out of balance. And so each person in the molecule must put himself in a state where he can receive from the higher parts of himself that we call the higher self or the soul. Now, when two people both receive from their soul, then they can be united together. Now, the advantage of you receiving from your soul and another person receiving from their soul is all souls agree with each other on important principles, and the principles that deal with our reality. And so if you receive from your soul and your friend receives from his soul, that which is received will agree with the other person. They will both agree. They will not conflict. Now, let's say Nick and Joshua both actually receive a communication from their higher self, and they receive, and then they talk about it. Now, because of the imperfections of human language, they may put the reception in a little bit different wording. Nick may word it a certain way, and Joshua may word it a little different way, and they may think, well, looks like we don't really agree. But see, they received the same idea, but they're expressing it a little differently. This is why in our communication, we must look beyond the actual literal words to the principles involved. And then, so what would happen if they're in the soul, they start talking about it, and they talk about, they communicate a little bit more effectively, and then all of a sudden it dawns on them, hey, I guess we don't disagree after all. You just worded it different than I would word it, okay? So this is an important thing. So finding 24 people that can receive from their soul and then communicate in such a way that they do not conflict. And if they do conflict, they can work it out. Because oftentimes people are saying the same thing, but using different wordings, and they misunderstand each other, and they think they're arguing. I've had a lot of people argue with me in the past, and I tell them, you know, you're not really disagreeing with me, you're just using a different wording. And they seem so bent on disagreeing that they don't want to try to harmonize. And so being willing to harmonize and understand is an important ingredient. You know. Okay, any comment on that?
Yes, I think that what you just said, there are some people that are heavily invested in being contrary and being cynical and not really seeing. So
Yeah.
that could be an obstacle, right? You know, for a right relationship. Also, though, I wanted to ask you, JJ. You were saying receiving from the soul, from the higher part of our soul, higher self. Of course, I understand all that, but I was always under the impression, for a while, that from my reading, that we are souls. We are soul. We are soul having a human experience. So it's just soul recognizing layers of soul, I guess, higher layers of soul, seeing that we're all soul.
Well, probably one of the best analogies or correspondences to this would be you and the dream state. Okay. Now, you have a certain consciousness right now. When you're in a dream state, your consciousness is much more limited. Okay. So you're still you in the dream state, but you're not aware of you in the world that you're in now. You're aware of the world in the dream state, but both of you still exist. Okay.
And we also exist in the deep sleep state when we don't really perceive any dreams whatsoever. That we're still
right. Your mind part of yourself actually goes back to your soul when you're dreaming, even if you're in a non-dream state. Okay. Now, when you go to sleep, a part of you leaves. That's why you're not as smart in the dream state as you are in the waking state. You're not as aware. Your consciousness is.
Right. They say that when we sleep, we're going to the astral plane, that we're taking trips to the astral plane. So
A part of you does. A part of you goes to astral plane, but another part of you goes back to your soul. Okay. You have the emotional part of yourself and the mental part of yourself. The mental part of yourself is a part of yourself that makes decisions. Okay. The astral part of yourself can't make decisions. That's why the astral part of yourself goes into the dream state. And that's why you can't make a decision, intelligent decisions in the dream state, because you're entirely, you've got the emotional part of yourself staying here. The mind part of yourself returns to the world of the soul. Okay, so your soul is a little bit more awake when you're asleep, because your soul projects a portion of itself down here. Most of the real you isn't even here. It's in the world of the souls, or the kingdom of souls, or the spirit world. Lots of different names, paradise. But so the higher part of yourself is there. It's there right now. You could have actually, your soul could decide to appear in somebody's dream while you are still here, because your soul just projects part of itself. And same thing, when we dream, we just project part of ourselves in the dream. And the higher part of ourselves isn't in the dream. The lower part of ourself is in the dream. And but we are a dream of our soul, and our soul lives on a higher level, and it's projected itself down here into this world to gain experience in a limited condition. And eventually we learn to wake up. And when we wake up, then we sense the consciousness of our soul. So our consciousness can go up to a higher level than it was before. A little bit like having what they call vivid dreaming or whatever, where you're aware that you're dreaming. And when lucid dream, that's a lucid dreaming. So when you have a lucid dream, then if you want to fly, you can just fly or whatever. But if you're having a regular dream, you feel like you're completely limited, that you don't have any control of what's going on. And so when you make soul contact here, it gives you more control. And then as you increase that contact, it removes your limitations in your consciousness. So the entity becomes more aware. Now, and this will be a key to creating a molecule that's successful, will be to have 12 units, 12 male, female units that have this connection. And when they have that connection, a whole molecule of beings will be activated, and they will function on a different level of consciousness than anything we've seen for thousands of years. But so that should be very interesting. Okay, we're near the end of our class here. Any comments or questions on that before we wrap it up? Yeah, it's interesting to think of the soul and obtaining oneness. A lot of people think that obtaining oneness is impossible, that two people are always going to disagree on different things. Now, to reach agreement in the soul, we have to see the difference between the soul and the personality. Personalities, we all have personalities, and the personalities all like different colors, and maybe one person likes the temperature of 78 degrees, and another person wants it 74 degrees, or whatever. So we all have those little differences. But when the consciousness of the soul is reached, those things are not important. What's important is the principles, that you see the same ideas and how things work in the same way. And two people that's sharing soul consciousness will be able to reach harmony on all of the important principles governing the endeavors that they seek to accomplish. And so through the soul, two people will be one. And it reminds us of the scripture that says, they shall see eye to eye when the Lord shall bring again Zion. And seeing eye to eye, notice it doesn't say eyes to eyes. It says eye to eye, referring to the third eye, to the ajna center. Once a person, and that's kind of opens the door to the soul, is being able to see through the higher parts of herself, through the soul. It is possible for two people to see as one, for 7 people to see as one, for 12 people to see as one, for 24, and eventually 144,000 people will see as one through the soul. And that will be a great day. Okay, but about time to wrap it up. Any other comments or questions?
Thanks for the class, JJ.
Yeah, happy Father's Day again, everybody.
Oh yeah, happy Father's Day to all you fathers.
Father's Day, everyone.
Happy Father's Day, everyone. Happy Father's
Thank
Day.
you very much.
Happy Father's Day to everybody.
Father's Day to everyone.
Well, I think everybody here that's a dad is a good dad.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we can agree on. Okay, well, everybody, we'll see you next week at Sunday at 10 a.m. all being well.
Thanks, JJ. Good
All
class.
right.
Thank you.
Good
Great.
night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Be well. Be well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.